I know that I haven't been who I was.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Measure and Mix. Today I'm going to be making 3 Dollar Tree high-end home decor DIYs. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Hit the subscribe button and don't forget to ring the bell so you get notified when I upload a new video. Alright, let's get started. For this DIY, I'm going to be making a home sign out of 2 of these canvas frames from Dollar Tree. They are the 8x10 size, and I already removed the canvas from one of the frames, and the other one I half removed from the frame. So I just use a little pry bar to get out the staples and remove the canvas. But honestly, you don't have to remove the staples. You could just pull off the canvas because the staple part will be on the back side of this sign. So my sign is going to be put together like this. So I need to remove those 2 pieces on each one of the frames. So I just pulled a little bit on each side of those and they eventually just slid right out. And then you're left with the little silver pieces that hold the frames together. And I just used some pliers to pull those out. Now I'm going to use my hacksaw that I got from Dollar Tree, and since those edges are angled where I took those pieces of frame off, I am just going to use the hacksaw to saw each side of those down so that way they are even. After I got the edges sawed off, I came back with some sandpaper and sanded them down so that way that they were even and flat, because I am going to be placing these 2 frames together on those sides, so I didn't want to have major gaps or have them be uneven. So once that was done, I just put the frames together and I used some hot glue to secure them. Now, if you didn't like the gaps or the seams, you could definitely fill them in with some wood filler and sand that down. I didn't have any wood filler at the time, so that's why I didn't do it. Next, I used some black foam board from Dollar Tree to make a backing for my frame. I forgot to film the part of me cutting it out and tracing it, but all I did was place the frame on top of the foam board, trace it out with a pencil, and then use a box cutter to cut the foam board out to get my size. And then as you can see here, the foam board does not have black edges, so I wanted it to all be cohesive, so I used some black acrylic paint to paint the edges, and then I ended up coming back and painting the whole thing with black acrylic paint just to make sure everything was cohesive and even. And you could use white foam board instead if you wanted a white background, but I just had black foam board on hand, so that's what I used. Then once everything was dry, I just flipped over my frame and used some hot glue on the back of it and secured my foam board down. Now, I finally found some of these wooden arrows from Dollar Tree, so I'm going to use it to make a little house for my sign. So I just cut off the rope that was on it, and unfortunately, it didn't fit onto the sign the way it was, so I just placed the top of the arrow or the house to the top of my sign, and then I brought it down and used a little pencil to mark where I needed to cut the bottom off of. Then I just took my box cutter and I scored along that marking. A lot of times it probably took about 50 times for me to score it so that way it would break off. I just sanded the bottom of the house to make sure it wasn't jagged and it was even, and it worked out perfect. Next, I took those 2 pieces of frame that I removed from the canvases early on, and I brought them back and placed them together. I just left 2 of the prongs in on one side of the frame, and then I put them in on the other side of the frame where the other ones originally went. I just pushed them down with some scissors to help me get them into place, and then that worked perfectly. So now I just needed to cut the bottoms off to make them even with the house. So I just marked them and then cut them with my hacksaw, and that was it. Next, I filled the little hole in on the house with some hot glue, and then once that was dry, I just took some white chalk paint and I just painted 1 coat of white chalk paint on the front and sides of the house. Then I found this wooden home sign from Dollar Tree, so I painted just the front of the sign. I did not paint the edges because the edges were kind of darkened and I liked that look. I did get a little paint on the edges, so I came back with some sandpaper paper after it was dry and sanded down the edges of that home sign. Then I came back to the house and I put a little wood stain, dark walnut wood stain on the edges and sanded that down just to make it look a little more weathered. Then once all of that was dry, I went ahead and just hot glued my roof line onto my house. Next, I wanted to make a wreath for the front of my house. So I had a bunch of these florals from Dollar Tree in a plastic bag. So I pulled out the leaf bunches that I had that all matched. And there was about 5 or 6 leaf bunches, I think there. And to make my wreath, what I did was I just took a leaf bunch and then I took another one and I tucked the bottom of that leaf bunch inside the first one. And I used a little hot glue to secure it inside. And then I just made a line of these. And then when I got to the end, you can see here, I just kind of wrapped it in a circle and hot glued the one end inside the other leaf bunch. And then I just hot glued that down to the front of my house. Now all I needed to do was take my house and my home and attach that to my foam board. I just used some hot glue to secure both of those down to the foam board and it worked out perfect. Then I just needed to add a hanger to the back of my sign. So I used some of this wired twine that came from Dollar Tree a while back and I hot glued it to the back of my foam board. And that was it. I love how this sign turned out. It's beautiful.
I know that I haven't been who I was.
For this DIY, I'm going to use one of these galvanized buckets that came from Dollar General actually. It was only $1 for this, but I can't find any galvanized buckets from my Dollar Tree. I guess they just don't have them in right now, but I thought this one was cute and it was still only $1, so I thought I'd throw it in here in these DIYs. So I'm going to dress it up a little bit by making it a hanging planter. I'm just going to use some nautical rope from Dollar Tree and I just cut 3 pieces at equal lengths. And I'm just going to take one end of one of the pieces of nautical rope and I'm going to hot glue that down to the inside of the bucket. Then I just did the same thing with the other 2 pieces, just spacing them out evenly. Next, I just brought the ends of the rope to the top together and tied a knot, and then I cut the excess rope. Once that was done, I just needed to fill my bucket. So I found these 3 different types of foliage at Dollar Tree. So I just cut the stems of them off so that way they would be easier to spread out inside the bucket. And then I just placed them in there however I liked. And that was it. This was a super simple, easy, quick farmhouse DIY that didn't cost very much.
Try again, yeah, just give me one more chance. I swear I'll try my best to always be there. And I want you to know that I'm not.
For this DIY, I'm going to use one of these small framed chalkboard signs that come from Dollar Tree. On the back, it has a little stand, and I'm just going to remove that stand. It just pops off really easily, and then that way, when you flip it back over, it sits evenly on the surface. Next, I'm going to use these wood craft dowels that come from Dollar Tree. They are the longer ones, and I'm going to be making a windmill. So I'm going to be making the structure that the windmill sits on. So I'm going to be using 4 of these wood dowels to make the structure. What I'm going to do is take 2 of the dowels and I'm going to place them in opposite corners of the chalkboard, and then I'm going to bring the dowels together at the top to a point. Then I am just going to take some hot glue to secure the dowels at the bottom onto the chalkboard, and then I'm going to hot glue the top of the dowels together so that way they can stand up on their own. Then with the other 2 dowels, I'm going to place those in the other 2 corners that are opposite of each other and hot glue them down and then hot glue the tops. Now I have sort of a teepee structure here, so I need to add some details. So on the front side, I'm going to take another wood dowel and I'm just going to measure the size that I want it to sit in the middle of my triangle, and I'm going to use my scissors just to kind of score it, and then I'm just going to break it off and use some sandpaper to sand the ends of those down so that way they are smooth. Then I just took some hot glue and I put that on the ends of the little dowels and placed those on the inside of each side of the triangle. And then I did the same thing with another piece. I just cut it smaller and then placed that kind of above the other dowel that I had on one side and did the same thing on the other side and used some hot glue again. Now I'm going to make an X pattern in the middle of this little design. So I'm just going to take a dowel and cut it to size again. And then I'm going to hot glue one to the outside of the little triangle, and then I'm going to flip it over and then hot glue the other part of the X design on the inside of the triangle. And then that way I have my design. Okay, so this is what it looks like, and as you can see here, I have the bottom wrapped in some craft paper with some tape, and that's because I want to paint my structure a galvanized color to match my windmill. So I have to use some spray paint for that because I don't have any regular paint, so that is why I covered the bottom up. So I just went ahead and spray painted everything so that way it would have a silvery metallic color, and then I just unwrapped the bottom so that way it didn't get any paint on it. And I actually thought it was too silvery and it didn't match the windmill from Dollar Tree, so I took some black acrylic paint and with a sponge brush I just kind of sponged over all of it lightly. That way it kind of dulled it out a little bit and made it look a little more worn and galvanized. And then I realized I didn't like the wooden frame anymore, so I just went ahead and painted it with black acrylic paint as well, so that way everything would blend together nicely. Now here's the windmill I'm going to be using that came from Dollar Tree. So I just had to remove that bottom portion in the hanger from the middle part of the windmill. So I just pulled and pried and was trying to be as careful as I could not to break the windmill. The front little middle part came off, but I did hot glue that back down, so that was not a big deal. And once I got it all removed, I just used some hot glue in the middle back side of the windmill, and then I just hot glued it to the top of my structure. Now I'm going to place this glass candle holder with a Dollar Tree battery operated candle in it, and I'm just going to place that right underneath the structure. It fit perfectly. And then these leaf bunches are from that same bag I showed you at the beginning of the video. They're just a different type of leaf. So I pulled out a bunch of those and I thought they kind of looked like lamb's ear, so I placed them around the candle holder, and I love how this turned out. I think it is so pretty and perfect farmhouse decor.
I just don't know what to do if you go.
Thank you guys for watching today. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to follow me over on Instagram and Facebook for more inspiration and behind the scenes, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care. Bye-bye.